The spoon hit the saucer with a soft chime, just as the word slipped out, sorry. It wasn't mine to give, but it came faster than breath, a reflex sharper than thought. A man had brushed past my chair, his coat grazing my sleeve, his voice already elsewhere. Yet I was the one apologizing, smoothing the air he'd disturbed. Around me, the cafe hummed with quiet collisions, chairs scraping, cups clinking, people claiming space without hesitation. I sat perfectly still, as if movement might invite notice. It wasn't a single word that hurt, it was the ease of it, the practiced fluency of shrinking. Every sorry, I whispered into rooms that didn't ask for it, had eroded something invisible grain by grain. Confidence doesn't shatter, it dissolves. And I had been dissolving for years, under the polite weight of not wanting to offend. Silence felt safer than presence, but safety is a poor substitute for self-respect. When the barista called my name, my voice barely rose above the espresso hiss. It struck me, faint but undeniable. I'd learned to exist quietly so others could stay comfortable. That realization lingered like the aftertaste of burnt coffee, bitter, necessary, impossible to notice. The elevator light was cruel that morning, fluorescent, unfiltered, the kind that exposes everything you'd rather keep blurred. I caught my reflection by accident, a brief flicker on the metal doors, and for a second I didn't recognize her. The posture was familiar, shoulders angled inward, expression neutral, presence edited. But there was a strange vacancy in her eyes, as if she'd been standing slightly behind her own life for too long. I'd spent years perfecting that invisibility, mistaking it for grace. At work, I spoke in measured tones, so no one mistook confidence for arrogance. In conversations, I asked careful questions so others could shine. The result wasn't respect, it was erased. Perfectionism disguised itself as poise, but what it really demanded was disappearance. The elevator dinged, and I stepped out, but the image followed me, blurred at the edges, efficient, yet absent. Reflection versus reality. I looked composed, but I felt like wallpaper. It wasn't that anyone had taken my space. I'd slowly given it away, one self-correction at a time. That afternoon, I avoided every mirror in the office restroom, pretending it was about time. It wasn't. It was about truth. I wasn't afraid of what I'd see. I was afraid of how clearly I might finally see it. The year itself looked successful on paper. Steady promotions, polished reports, a corner desk I barely looked out of. Every 6 months, the company conducted performance reviews, and my file always glowed. Reliable, detail-oriented, dependable, words that sound like praise but quietly mean invisible. During one review, my manager complimented the presentation I'd built, except he credited Mark for spearheading the insights. I smiled, nodded, and even thanked him for the feedback. The silence between us felt heavier than honesty. Outside work, the pattern repeated. I remembered birthdays, proofread resumes, stayed late to listen when friends needed fixing, but when it was my turn to speak, conversations somehow drifted elsewhere. I called it kindness, but it was exhaustion disguised as virtue. Generosity without boundaries isn't grace, it's erosion. Confidence had become something I outsourced. If others approved, I existed. If they didn't, I recalibrated. Yet competence was never my problem. I could deliver under pressure, hold entire projects together, but competence earns respect. Confidence demands presence, and I'd quietly forfeited mine. Each night, the apartment hummed with stillness. I told myself peace was better than conflict, yet the quiet I'd built wasn't peace at all. It was the sound of a truth I kept choosing not to tell. It began on a Tuesday. Without ceremony, no meltdown, no manifesto. Just a quiet question that landed mid-scroll through an unsent email. How many times a day do I erase myself? I opened a new note on my phone and started keeping score. Every deleted sentence, every softened opinion, every just checking message that shrank a clear request went on the list. By noon, the count was in double digits. By Friday, I'd stopped pretending I didn't know the pattern. The audit wasn't about blame, it was about data. I printed my own words, highlighted each self-edit in yellow, and realized how brightly invisibility glows when you start measuring it. The pages looked like confessions, proof that I'd mistaken diplomacy for disappearance. At work, I tracked how often I deferred in meetings. At home, I noted the times I apologized for needing space. Visibility versus invisibility. It was shocking how many micro-choices built a life that looked peaceful but felt hollow. If you've never done it, try tracking how often you edit yourself. The data will shock you too. By the end of that week, The exercise had shifted something subtle but irreversible. Awareness doesn't shout, it hums. And once you start hearing it, silence no longer feels safe. It feels like evidence waiting to be examined. 8 weeks. That's how long I gave myself not to change, just to collect proof. I bought a small black notebook, the kind accountants use, and titled, the first page, Receipts. Each day had its own line. Timestamp, trigger, choice. 7:42 a.m., deleted an assertive email. 1:10 p.m. said yes to an unnecessary favor. 9:56 p.m., checked a message 3 times before sending. By the second week, the pages looked crowded, like a crime scene I'd been cleaning up for years. The process was maddening but precise. I printed screenshots of messages I never sent, folded them into envelopes labeled almost. Bank statements joined the pile, subscriptions I'd forgotten to cancel, refunds I hadn't pursued, raises I hadn't negotiated. Every postponed decision was its own kind of silence. Every maybe later, a withdrawal from my own authority. Evidence versus excuses, the contrast stared back from the paper in black and white. Midway through week 5, my phone buzzed with a text from an old mentor I hadn't spoken to in months. Confidence is a system, not a feeling. I stared at the line for a long time. It was a pattern interrupt, disguised as advice. I realized feelings fade, but systems, habits, records, structure build permanence. So I treated confidence like bookkeeping. Small deposits, daily, review weekly, reconcile monthly. By week 8, the notebook was swollen with notes, paper clips, and printed screenshots. I ran my hand over the uneven pages and felt something new, proof replacing memory. The evidence wasn't dramatic, but it was undeniable. I hadn't imagined my disappearance. I had documented it, and now I had the receipts. The first change was so small, it almost slipped by unnoticed. During the Monday meeting, when the usual debate began circling like a stalled ceiling fan, I spoke once, clearly, without softening. No preface, no apology, no upward inflection to make it sound like a suggestion. The silence that followed wasn't hostile, it was startled. My manager blinked, pen frozen midair. Someone coughed. Then, the conversation moved forward on my point. It wasn't triumph that I felt, but gravity returning to its rightful direction. After that, I began testing quiet forms of momentum. In emails, I deleted the cushions no more. Just checking in, no more. If that's okay. My sentences stood on their own feet. I adjusted posture too. Shoulders back, breath steady, voice pitched to be heard but not defended. Each micro-moment was its own experiment in presence. The reactions were subtle but revealing. Colleagues paused longer before interrupting. One even double-checked an opinion with me after the meeting, something that had never happened before. They weren't cruel before, just accustomed to the version of me who made herself optional. I had trained them to expect hesitation. Now I was retraining both of us for momentum. By Friday, even the way I signed my name felt different. Not louder, just certain. Confidence hadn't arrived like lightning. It had unfolded, one unapologetic sentence at a time. It didn't take long for the shifts to start echoing back at me. A friend I'd known for years tilted her head during coffee and said, half joking, "You've changed kind of. Sharper now." I smiled, though I could feel the weight beneath her tone. At work, my manager called me intense after I questioned a rushed decision in front of the team. The word landed like a caution, not a compliment. Peace versus approval, apparently. I couldn't hold both at once. The tension wasn't dramatic. It was quieter, more insidious. Emails took longer to get replies. Invitations slowed. One client ended our contract with a polite, different direction note. It stung, but the numbers were clear. The account had only brought minimal profit and maximum anxiety. Losing it cost less than keeping it. Real clarity has its own economy. Still, there were moments when the silence pressed hard against my ribs, the space after speaking up, the pause after saying no. But this time, the quiet didn't feel like erasure. It felt like composure. I was learning that peace isn't the absence of friction. It's the refusal to absorb everyone else's noise. By month's end, the air around me had changed. Fewer people filled it, but the ones who remained spoke slower, listened longer. The calm was no longer fragile. It was earned. One evening, long after the office lights had dimmed, I caught my reflection again in the same elevator, the same metallic glare. But this time, I didn't look away. The image staring back wasn't flawless or fearless, just present. My shoulders were squared, not stiff, my eyes steady. The elevator hummed between floors, suspended quiet where everything echoed. Avoidance versus acknowledgement, I felt the difference in my spine. For months, I'd treated confidence like a performance. Now I understood it was an agreement between the voice I silenced and the one I was finally allowing to speak. The enemy had never been my colleagues, my manager, or the world that rewarded compliance. It was the reflex inside me that mistook smallness for safety. Back at my desk, I opened the drafts folder on my phone, rows of unsent apologies, messages I'd written to smooth moments that didn't need smoothing. I scrolled once, then pressed Select All. Delete. The screen cleared to white, like a breath released. The quiet that followed wasn't hollow anymore. It was weightless. The mirror closed its loop, and for the first time, the reflection didn't feel like a stranger. It felt like a return. Rebuilding didn't look like reinvention. It looked like routine. Each morning, before emails or noise, I wrote down 3 proofs from the day before. Small, factual, unarguable, spoke up in the meeting, transferred savings before spending, said no without an apology. The list grew slowly, like scaffolding around a structure I was learning to trust. Chaos versus control. It wasn't about changing everything, just building foundations sturdy enough to stand on. I started automating my finances, setting quiet systems that didn't rely on willpower, automatic transfers every Friday, expense reviews twice a month. Each decision felt like a beam locked into place. Socially, I pruned what no longer fit the friend who thrived on my softness, the colleague who preferred my silence. The spaces left behind didn't feel empty. They felt intentional. If you start small, your confidence won't feel like a performance. It'll feel like truth. Proof replaces pretending. Now, when the world speeds up around me, I don't scramble to match it. I pause, breathe, and let the silence hold. It's no longer the silence of absence. It's the sound of something well-built, staying upright. The cafe hadn't changed, the same chipped tables, the same low hum of morning chatter, but I had. I stood in line, unhurried, scrolling through messages I no longer felt the need to answer right away. When someone brushed past my shoulder, their bag knocking against my arm, the old reflex twitched. The word sorry rose halfway, then stopped. Silence held its ground, steady and calm. Old reflex versus new identity. I took my coffee to the same corner table as before, the one where I used to fold myself small. Now, I sat upright, elbows unhidden, breath even. Around me, the world buzzed as it always had, but I didn't disappear inside it. The quiet wasn't something I hid behind anymore. It was something I carried. People ask what changed, expecting a secret. There isn't one. I stopped chasing confidence. I started keeping promises to myself. Lately, I've been sharing that system, helping others build their own proof lists, their own quiet returns. Because power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just walks back into the same room, looks around, and realizes it never needed to apologize for being there.